Hi, everybody. Welcome back to talking about the big stuff. I'm Michael Cole, and I know it's been about 6 or 7 weeks since my last episode. Um, been a lot. We had Christmas. I went to Hawaii. I think I had mentioned that on the last episode, and then I've been just swamped with work. So we have a new year, new plan, and speaking of new and the new plan, to get this podcast going steadily and moving along is I got a new co-host. Um, he's been promoted from guest. My friend Matthew Krevat, who he's been on a couple episodes. If you've been listening, you're probably somewhat familiar with him. And say hi, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew. Hey, Michael Cole. It's good to be here.
All right,
Got my
so
new seat, getting all set to my imprint. So when I sit here every week, it'll feel
yeah,
like a glove. But it's weird to sit on a glove. But I'll do it anyway.
yeah, like a butt cheek
A
glove.
butt cheek glove.
Yeah, I actually feel like there's a market for that, but we have not got a sponsor yet. So when Adam and Eve finally decide to sponsor us, like they do all of our favorite podcasts, Gloria, check out. We will pitch to them the butt cheek glove.
Yeah, it can have like a little saddle horn kind of insert to make sure you're just centered just right.
Yeah, yeah. I came up with this week's topic. Okay. I'm gonna. This is gonna be a lot to unpack on this week's topic, but I saw Morgan Wallen on the radio a couple days ago, and do you know who Morgan Wallen is?
I don't even know what a radio is.
Yeah, because you're Gen Z, so you don't know what a radio is anymore. It's this thing they used to have in the car. So Morgan Wallen was on the radio. He's a country artist. A few years ago, he was, I'll quote unquote canceled because during a drunken party he said the N word. I want to say it was not the first time. I don't remember all the details.
Was he the one who was like didn't get to be on SNL that week because it happened, and then like a couple of weeks later he was on SNL, and then something happened right afterwards again?
I think you're right. I think that is there was definitely.
But like I
something
think
with
one of them was like with partying with a bunch of women and making out with them, or something was like the
something.
second time, or
Yeah.
something like things back to back happened with him. I think.
So he, yeah. So I don't know enough about his story. I don't have a he is the poster boy to me mentally for something that is not. I don't want to put on him, but so until fairly recently I was a big believer that like cancel culture was not really a thing, and he was the number one explanation for me as to why I was right about that. And now I do not think that anymore. I think it's not it tends to not be the thing everyone thinks it is, but it is. But so let me explain why I say he was the poster boy. He
But he was on that poster.
Yeah. Well, no, he was canceled, and they his music I think was taken off of Spotify, and there was all these like repercussions for a week or two. But then I like a million people that I know were like, "Oh, we're gonna go to his concert that he's having next month," and I'm seeing him on XM radio, and I'm seeing him on the regular radio, and like so there was no lasting or meaningful repercussion, and I don't know. I'm a big proponent of you know rehabilitation, especially let's talk on a more criminal justice sense. I like do think that it's important. So on a non-criminal justice sense, it should absolutely be important.
I have that same argument with people. Like, I'm very politically liberal, and my liberal friends are all about, well, if you've been to prison and you served your time and our prisons are terrible, then they don't do a good job of rehabilitating. But when you're rehabilitated, you shouldn't be punished the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what if you smack someone on the butt? Oh, punish you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's odd.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of overblowing with it, and it's it's one of those things. It's like woke or whatever whatever buzzword.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of labels because, like, when you say cancel culture, it will mean something different to every person who listens to it.
True,
and their own, connotations will pop in their head of their examples, one way or another for what is meant by cancel culture.
Yeah,
because some people will say it's getting the consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, yeah, that's what it is. But then there's also, well, it's overreacting to things without having all the facts. And in some cases, yeah, it's that. And so, which one is it?
Yeah.
Both happen. Both are true things.
Right. I agree with you on that. I also think there's two different levels to it to me. Like, so you look at, you and I had before the show talked about your friend's example, and we could talk about that in a minute. But if you look at these people who were not public figures or not major public figures, the consequences a lot of times for them can be really bad. Like there was, I forget something Ronson. He wrote a book called Public Shaming or something about public shaming, and the big one that he used in the example was the woman who tweeted before going to Africa about, I want to say like something insensitive about African people or something.
Yeah, something about HIV or getting HIV while she's there.
And when she was on the plane, her like before she
lost her job by the time she got off the plane.
Lost her job. She had been publicly shamed and humiliated, and so there's those people. Then there's Morgan Wallen level, which, like I said, I don't know enough about his case to have a real strong opinion. Do I think it's stupid? I also think I'm relatively sure he's like 22, 23, so he's young and dumb. So he's dumb.
Well, I mean,
but then you look at Kevin Hart, and I'm going to use Kevin Hart as an example for a second because I really like Kevin Hart, but Kevin Hart and the Oscar shit drives me fucking nuts. Because Kevin Hart...
Is he up for an Oscar for like Jumanji or something? I'm not sure what's
no,
going on.
Kevin Hart was supposed to host the Oscars, then some old tweets of his came out. Yeah. And there was a bunch of like public outcry. He stepped down so that he wouldn't bring his drama to the Oscars, and he has not shut the fuck up for 7 or 8 years about how he was canceled by the Oscars. It's like, you stepped down. I think he did the right thing, but then by not shutting the fuck up about it for however many years it's been, it's like, no, you just used it as as your like, coupon to talk about dumb shit. Like, I to me, that's like celebrities, and like the other thing is when you talk about Morgan Wallen or you talk about Kevin Hart or any of these celebrities that pretend like they were canceled, like, and there's the big deal, like they were canceled, and within like the week after they were canceled, absolutely made more money than I've ever made in my entire life. Yeah, you know what I mean.
And I think a lot of times when celebrities are canceled, it means I lost my current audience and had to go get a different one.
Yeah.
Like Louis C.K., who was undeniably one of the top comedians, talent-wise, there was. Mm-hmm. And then when it came out that he's a scumbag, he just went, oh, I'll make jokes for the right wing now and they'll like me. And so he is as big as he was, but with a different audience.
Yeah, yeah. And that's absolutely like... And people at a lower level don't have that option. I think that's part of the problem too. Is like people who are not public figures beforehand. They only, I know there's. I don't want to like use him as an example because the first person that popped in my head was Kyle Rittenhouse. But like there are these people who become like darlings of, but they were already there. But you know what I'm saying, like. There's people
make a career over the bad thing they did.
Yeah,
I did something horrible, and half the world hates me, but the other half loves me for being horrible.
Right, so
and that's my career now.
Yeah. He's a bad example because
he killed people.
Yeah,
it's a little severe. But
allegedly.
But I think actually, technically not. He didn't murder people because he was found not guilty of murdering people. He's got a civil case coming up to see if he was responsible for their deaths, which is a different bar of proof. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great example because it shows that it doesn't matter how serious the crime is.
Yeah.
It could be taking lives of people. That's undeniable. Took lives of people.
Yes.
And still, some groups will support you, and some groups, will say taking people's lives is probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a weird philosophical stance to take, but yeah. You shouldn't take people's lives against their wills.
Yeah. One thing I want to get back to is my original thought that it wasn't a real thing. So we have this. You and I have talked about this before with labels and the idea that we have a lot of people in this country, or probably in society in general, who want to pick this like new term and like act like it's a new thing, even though it's not. Like woke is just
a
politically
90-year-old
correct
term.
or whatever what was before politically correct when I entered the mental
But even like the word woke appears in blues songs from 90 years ago about being about black people singing to black people about don't trust the people around you, keep your eyes open, be aware that sundown towns happen where you'll be attacked even if they're smiling at you. So like it's 100 years old, using it the way it's being used today. It's just that white people heard it. So now it's an issue.
That's true. But so what I was going to say with canceling is in a lot of the ways that we've started using it is not a new concept.
The Dixie Chicks got kicked off of all country music radio when George Bush was president for saying they were embarrassed that he was a Texan.
That's funny that you said that, because literally their "I'm Not Ready to Make Nice" played. It was the last song that played as I pulled in the driveway from work today.
Synchronicity.
But canceling is essentially just boycotting. We all have our like belief systems that we use our money for, or we use our voice for. It is not a new thing, and the idea of like you and I, for example, I'm pretty sure we're on the same page. I know we were at one point, but I don't eat a Chick-fil-A. I'm pretty sure you still don't eat a Chick-fil-A.
I will not eat free Chick-fil-A that someone else paid for. Even
Oh, okay.
I'm as I don't want to be in Chick-fil-A as possible.
And so like that's just like us. That's us deciding I don't want to contribute to that.
I don't want my money to end up in the pocket of Cathay, who's going to use it to take away people's rights. I don't want to. I mean, I know that half the money I spend is going into a corporation who's backing a horrible politician. But when I know specifically the direct line, what can you do?
Agreed. And I think that the big difference between boycotting and canceling is that like you and I are not successful. Chick-fil-A's thriving. Like you can drive by at lunchtime and see a line around the block. But
I think one of the big differences to me, that the reason that cancel culture as a term and canceling as a term exists now is because of social media making it ubiquitous that anyone can state their opinion. And that means that we used to be people saying, hey, I'm holding up a sign outside Chick-fil-A saying they're unfair to LGBTQ people, or not them actually, but their owner, not the corporate structure, but the person. And I'm boycotting them, and you should too, because it's a good idea to. And now it's you, Michael Cole, are a horrible person if you don't boycott who I'm boycotting. That's the cancel culture part that gets me. It's the people attacking people who don't feel the same way. Like I don't feel as strongly about that person's transgressions as you do. So I'm a bad guy now. Like it's second and third degree canceling.
I guess I see what you're talking about. I can be guilty of that. More with corporations than individuals. More with Walmart and Chick-fil-A and all those things. But
and I think to be politically, fair, the left does it too. Like all the hate that Monsanto had was really, I think, based in GMOs scare me, and I couldn't get people to boycott GMO products. So the company that makes a lot of GMO products does some horrible corporate stuff because they're a corporation. Let's say that company is horrible, or actually it was the other way around. They hated Monsanto because it's a horrible company. They couldn't get people to hate Monsanto enough, so they said the GMO products are dangerous. You should boycott them because of GMO, and that was total garbage. GMO is not dangerous, and it's not new. Just some of the technology is newer, but it was a way to hurt Monsanto, and there was the left's version of canceling. I want to cancel Monsanto, so I'm going to attack GMOs and probably cause people in Africa to starve to death because we can't use GMO crops to help them anymore because we made up a false narrative. But just saying.
Sarah has this Instagrammer that she follows, who I will not mention their name because I don't want to give them any. But she's not a right winger, but she's right wing. So most of her stuff is lifestyle crap. Like
she's not a political person, but she's right of center personally.
And every once in a while, there's a post that's right wing, and I don't know. I told Sarah, I'm like, she's really attractive, but like she just seems like an asshole to me. Like I'm not a big fan. But Sarah was watching something on her Instagram feed. This was 6 months to a year ago, and it like, I think if Sarah listens to this episode, she's gonna be mad that I'm bringing up this example because she's tired of hearing about it. But she and I don't remember. I want to say maybe Disney. I forget. But she was like, I don't agree with all the things that they're doing. I really disagree with whatever the situation was. It was almost certainly something about gay rights, and she didn't agree with it. And then she goes, "But I would never cancel anybody." And I'm like, "So you're just gonna spend your money at a thing you don't believe in? That's ridiculous to me." Like, and I'm not saying like, I think she was wrong on the level of like
The wrong target.
It's a stupid thing to dislike, but like at the same time, like what does that say about your belief systems that you're like I don't want to cancel so badly that I'm going to give my money to this thing that I disagree with vehemently. That seems really stupid to me. And that's when it clicked in my head like, oh, cancellation is just boycotting, and we just have this new name for it. Like we have woke for politically correct, and like all the way we keep when we can't get the right amount of outrage over something anymore. Well, when partly I would say this is more of a right wing thing than a left wing thing, but when a term no longer sparks the outrage, they come up with the new term, and to me that's what cancel culture has been now.
Yeah, well, I think I think that's canceling. I think the culture part, it makes it a little different. And again, labels are a pain in the butt because you have to define what you're talking about because it means different things to each of us. But I think part of the cancel culture to me is, so this is going on in, I won't use names, but in the podcast-diverse in which I listen to, which some of the same podcasts we listen to.
I'm fine with listing names on that one because it's
in the news. It's in the news.
It's in the news.
There's articles, yeah.
I would love for our podcast to get big enough that we get invited into the podcast-verse, and I would like to be on the record saying that we're on the right side of this.
Yeah, but I'm going to say some stuff that will upset some of the fans of the podcast.
Okay.
Well, so there's a podcast called Opening Arguments. It's a legal podcast. It's a host who's an everyman and a co-host who is a Harvard-educated lawyer. And it turns out that Harvard-educated lawyer, allegations have been made, some of which he has said are false and some of which he has apologized for, saying they're real, that when he's at live events and he drinks too much, he gives people unwanted sexual attention. In some cases, some people have accused it of being physical. Everyone has said that there's a lot of verbal and like, come back to my room and come have an affair with me and that kind of thing. One allegation that he had an affair with someone and then after it ended, harassed them persistently. So those are allegations. I'm not saying any of those are true. Which ones of those are true, though? He's admitted some of them are true and he has things to work on.
Gotcha. So
cancel him. Great. Like, people want him off the podcast. They want that's great. And I agree. I was a patron of the podcast and I took my money away from it. I'm not giving money to someone who does that. Yeah. That's great. But in the Facebook groups around not just that podcast, but he's also the lawyer for another group of podcasts and was a part owner of their business. People were attacking the host of that podcast, the co-host of the other podcast, saying they should have known. And if any of them had any suspicion, they should have, I don't know what, because he was their legal partner. I don't know what they could have done. They couldn't just fire him. He owns part of the company. Yeah. But they're attacking anyone who, they attacked the co-hosts of a separate podcast who once or twice collaborated with them as fundraising. And so that it's their fault too. And they were like, what did we do? We met him twice at events. Yeah. We're not friends with him. We don't have his phone number. Nothing to do with it. So, and then even someone who helped the victims come forward. There were 5 victims who came to a mutual friend / podcaster and friend of ours, but someone we've met in person. Yeah. Well, I should say his name. It's Aaron, because Aaron is in the article. If you Google this, you'll find the article. And in the article, basically, Aaron's like, it's terrible that 5 victims had to come to me, the white man, to come forward with their complaints for them because they weren't being listened to until a white man helped them. And I hate that I'm in the middle of this and I have to be the one to do it, but this is the only way to get it done. And now people are attacking him that he didn't get it done faster. It's like the victims are all like, he's helping us so much, and people who are not even a party to it are so into the culture of cancel everyone who's ever met him. And I'm like, hey, you listen to his podcast. Maybe you should cancel yourself.
Yeah.
Like we're all responsible.
Yeah.
And
I think this is not the controversial take that you thought it was.
Right. Well, I mean, like with those people, some of those people, if they were to hear this, would rage that it is to their fault. Like somebody shared I'm not going to say doctored screenshot of a conversation, but the last two bubbles of a text message with taken out of context. You say, aha, look, this person knew everything for 5 years and didn't do anything. Where someone else then posted the other 5 pages of text messaging, and it was clear the person messaging was trying to get them to say something controversial through the whole message until they finally said something they could screenshot. And, and twisted it with so many conditions and, which weren't in the screenshot to make it, well, what if the case was this, and God rained down frogs? Well, yeah, then I guess it wouldn't be his fault. Aha, he said it's not his fault.
Yeah.
And so the bad actors who overreact and even just react before they have any details.
Yeah.
Like I'm not defending the person who had the sexual transgression accusation, because they seem really, really, really credible. And like I say, in his apologies, he's mentioned some of them are. So I'm all for saying the word, canceling him.
Yeah.
Andrew Torres, I think he should be canceled.
Yeah.
It's my personal opinion. But I think everyone who's saying cancel anyone he's ever met is over the top. And I think that if that's what you mean by cancel culture, everyone just jumping on the bandwagon and canceling everyone without even knowing the details. Like the woman who we were saying earlier tweeted bad things on her way to Africa and lost her life by the time she got there, functionally.
Yeah.
Nobody knew any details about her but one tweet. They dug up stuff about her to say who she is, but it's like, how are you judging her entire life on one out of context tweet that was, I think demonstrably a bad joke and inappropriate, but it wasn't something, it wasn't a crime.
Yeah.
Like you can commit crimes and not lose your job.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with everything you just said. I will also say that I think that based on what you just said, we are safe if we ever get famous enough to be on the podcastiverse. Yeah. I really want to be. I just want to just have a conversation with those podcasters that are not mentioned in the article, but just because I listen, like I feel like I know them because I've been listening to them for one of them I've been listening to since I met you. The other one I've been listening to for 8 or 9 years, and I just it's my dream to be just interviewed, get to do like. Or get to interview one of them on this show, but so that's me dorking out a little bit. Yeah. So I did have something else.
But for me, that's like the problem with difference in canceling. I'm boycotting you, and cancel culture, flipping out over. I'm canceling anyone who ever went into a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's a little strong.
And I think that individuals versus groups is an important thing too, because there's plenty of groups that have made bad, like I can't remember if it was Burger King that was tweeting something about women's places in the kitchen,
which was meant to be a joke.
Well, I think it was partly a joke, partly like we want to promote women or something, but it was so poorly crafted. Yeah. And it was clearly, like we have to take into account intention, we have to take into account repeat, like whether you learn or like Chick-fil-A is a great example because Chick-fil-A has pretended that they were going to fix it so many times and then been like, fuck you, like we're not doing that. Whereas I think like Burger King and their, Burger King, it's corporation, so I'm sure they're not like some great entity.
It was someone in the social media group. It wasn't like it was a huge campaign. It was a tweet.
Right. Yeah. And I think it wasn't as ill-intentioned as it probably came out. Right. And they've remedied it, and they have not, in the last year, had a repeat of any issue that I'm aware of. And I think we need to take into account intention, but also, like, when you do have a group, you can hold the group responsible for a longer period of time than an individual, because the individuals, everything you do and say to some extent is on you, whereas a group, like, we can kind of just, if you worked for Chick-fil-A for a little while and quit, I wouldn't be like, you worked for Chick-fil-A, you scumbag. Like,
one of my best buddies did, and he was almost part of a class action lawsuit about how they treated their people of color owner managers, because I mean, I don't know, they were suing for being treated unfairly, and he was at one point being wooed to be part of the class action suit, but I think it was before he left their employ, so he didn't want to be part of it.
They're Mormons, right? Chick-fil-A? Or am I wrong?
They're hardcore Christians, but I don't think they're Mormon.
Okay. Sorry, you just said that, the people of color, and I was really... So I've heard, I had a friend from work who had an uncle that was a Mormon pastor, but is black, and he's like 70.
Which means he wasn't a Mormon pastor until 1978 when they acknowledged black people.
Well, and I was just thinking, like, and I also, Sarah and I have been watching that Parent Test show. I don't know if you've seen the ads for it. It's like 8 or 9 different couples that are raising children, and they have different parenting styles. There's like traditional, there's helicopter parents, there's free range, there's like they're
like
trying
chickens,
but they're doing it like a game show, which is stupid. But one of the couples is a Mormon couple, and she's white and he's black, and I just am fascinated by the idea of, like, I get, if you go back in any religion, if you're not a white man and you go back in time in any religion, you're going to be like, oh, I wasn't allowed to be this at some point. But for
Mormons, it's back to my childhood.
Right.
But I was alive.
I was going to say, but for Mormons, like, the guy in the show has got to be close to your age. Like, he's not like my age, and not to, you said 78. That's 6 years before I was born. So like, that's not like some.
I turned 12.
Yeah, but like at the same time, and that other friend.
I think that's the year. I might be off by a year, but I think it was 78.
Yeah, right, but even still, like the point being, like, there's this old Daniel Tosh quote of, I think it was Daniel Tosh. It said he was talking about Scientology, I think, or maybe it was Mormonism. And he said, your religion doesn't count if my grandfather's old enough to remember before it, or remember.
That's Scientology.
Yeah.
Mormonism goes back to 19th century.
But like, I also feel like if the rule that excluded you,
18, I don't know.
If the rule that treated you basically as a non-human being, like, I get it. We've had some very recent history, even in just a governmental, but to me it's interesting, and I would love to talk to somebody about like how they square that circle. Like,
well, I saw a Chris Rock quote just today somewhere.
Yes, I know exactly what quote you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it was FFRF or something like it shared it because it's his birthday. I think today's his birthday. Happy birthday, Chris! And
he's a big fan.
Yeah, big fan of the show. Big fan of the pod. But it was about how he had said at one point he doesn't understand how black people be Christians. Christians are the ones who enslaved black people and then used Christianity to justify it. Like, did you forget
to be a black Christian? You have to have a short memory. Yeah.
Anyway, but I've also seen the flip side is I've seen black Christians talking about, when white people used the Bible to justify what they were doing, they were so wrong. They were reading the Bible wrong, because the Bible's about being discriminated against and rising up and surviving it. And it's like, wow, what a great way to con you into not having a revolution. Just tell you when you die you'll be rewarded for being treated bad. Keep picking cotton. Gets me. I'm with Chris on this one.
Well, I think that the idea of black, specifically black, but like I said, anything that you're in the group that couldn't have been in it, in your lifetime. Those people,
log cabin Republicans today.
Yes, those people are the ultimate anti-cancel cultures people, because they're like, oh no, I get that. Like, I wasn't allowed to do this like 6 weeks ago, but I am on board now. And they're like, I'm not going to cancel Mormonism for thinking black people aren't humans. Like, up until my lifetime, I'm going to participate.
When I was 15, you realized I was a human. It's cool now.
Yeah. They're the ultimate anti-cancel culturists. Yeah.
And since we brought up comedians in this way, I think one of the things that hits hard for comedians in the cancel culture world is, I've heard some comedian talk about this, I don't remember who, but that it used to be you went to see a comedy show and you had an intimate experience. And I know from doing comedy, perform comedy for decades, you're feeling out your audience in the first part of the show. You're building a rapport with your audience. Your audience is learning who you are. Yeah. And by the time you do the risque stuff or the rude stuff or the blue stuff or the racist stuff, you've established this is not me. This is a character. And you guys know I'm joking. And I know you're not into it. If you were into it, I wouldn't be doing this joke. Yeah. We know who we are. And now when you do that joke, someone videos that last 5 seconds and puts it on the internet. And it's out of the context of this was a joke that the audience was enjoying and part of, and it was fake. And I didn't do stand up. I did improv, where I stopped doing improv. I'll say because of cancel culture. There was a friend of mine lost his comedy career because of a coordinated attack where people wrote Facebook posts where they didn't make accusations, but they made it sound like he did sexual horrible things, so that the replies were, "Oh my God, he raped that one." Like one thing was, a woman said, "I went to his office, and the next thing I knew, we were having sex." And then the 5 responses were, "Oh my God, he raped you, he raped you, he raped you." But if you read the text messages between them from that day and the next day, she was like, "I'm coming over to your office after the fireworks on July 4th, so we can make fireworks of our own." And the next day was like, "Wow, that happened. That was great. Maybe you can come to my office next time for a nooner." And it's like, clearly, the next thing I knew, we were having sex wasn't a rape comment, but they purposely wrote it that way 5 years after the relationship ended, so that other people would think it is. You know, and like the culture of everyone jump on him and do not believe the accused no matter what they say is a rough culture, because people will say like, "Well, 98% of the time it's true." Well, that means 2% of the time it's not true. And you're destroying someone's life, and saying, "Well, too bad, numbers say it's okay to destroy that person's life. Too bad he can't feed his son anymore."
Yeah, I agree. It was a hard conclusion, and I do tend to side with accusers. Like I just mentally, I also understand that there are some situations like do you know who is it David Portnoy? Something Portnoy. He's the head of Barstool Sports.
No, I don't have bar stools. I don't buy those.
But he was accused of rape, and my immediate reaction to Sarah, because I don't like that guy, my immediate reaction to Sarah was, I've never seen somebody who looked as much like a rapist, and I thought that before I heard he was accused of rape. And then I have a friend who loves this guy, and he was like, "Nah, he didn't do it. And I'm like, "Yeah, but you're never going to side with the woman or the accuser." And I'm almost always going to side with the accuser. The more I learned about that case, the more it sounds like, and I don't know enough about it, but the more it sounds like there's a reasonable doubt that he did it. But I also like, he looks like one. He looks like one. The way he talks, the way he talks sounds like a rapist, and like he just has such rapey vibes.
Oh, it's like when all the harassment things came about Governor Cuomo in New York. You're like, am I surprised? He looks like the kind of guy who would harass everyone in his office. Yeah. I mean, and I think that the whole believe woman thing is an incredibly important way to behave with an accuser. It's like, take them 100% at their word for how you treat them and how you investigate it, and assume that they're telling the truth until you see that they're not. But when there's no evidence that they are, and that's when you have to stop back and say, well, I don't want to destroy someone's life without evidence. Right. I need to still support you for the pain you're going through and what you feel, but also not destroy someone else when maybe they didn't do that.
Right.
And then when you get 5 accusers, you go, okay, you know what? Yeah. The 10% chance or the 2% chance that you didn't do it has been multiplied now or divided. Yeah. You probably did it.
Right. And it's important when we hear an accusation to not immediately try to slut shame the victim. I think that's part of, we have overcorrected a lot because we, I don't mean me and you and me. We aren't like that, but like, I'm sure you've heard it where somebody's accused somebody of rape, and they're like, she had like 3 sexual partners, and she's like 75. 3 sexual partners? That's one every 25 years. That's a lot of sexual partners.
Yeah, I'm from a Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn. You're from Massachusetts. That's a Massachusetts thing, not a Jewish. Not a Jewish neighborhood thing.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean the movie The Accused with Jodie Foster. That whole story where she was a party girl in a bar, so obviously she wanted to be gang raped. Yeah, that's ridiculous. The fact that she was beaten and raped by 10 people couldn't have been true.
Right. Yeah. It's also funny because like I feel like whenever
that's a weird thing to reply.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's funny not funny haha, but funny
like I'm a clown, like I amuse you.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that we do this. I mean, we're at a point. It's 2023. We're at a point where like. It is 2023. Right?
It is.
You just looked at me like,
I was like, it's that late already. I gotta go.
But we are at a point where in where I would think that like some of the things that they use to discredit rape victims or rape accusers are so what we would like so prudish or so non
Right.
controversial unless you
They lived a normal life.
yeah the like, do you see that? I could see like a 1/4 inch of tit there. And it's like, yeah, because she's got quadruple D's and like she just can't hide them. Like, there's no way. Like that, you know.
Yeah, that. But I mean, ironically, it doesn't have to be an accuser. Like you see stories of school boards who want to do Missouri's General Assembly legislator. I'm not sure what they call their legislation branch.
About the cat
But
thing.
No, they passed a new rule that the female representatives and senators can't wear short sleeves because their it's improper to show their arms. I don't know what century it is in Missouri. It's not 2023 there.
Right, that's true. I would like to suggest that we
Sorry, Missouri listeners.
We need to come up with a merchandise for our male fans. So that's like 3 people. But still, at this, hopefully in the archives, when
you're listening back in 10 years,
when you're listening back and we have 7 or 8 fans, male fans, then we need to get some. We need to create a merch pant that has dick cleavage, like specifically for, so that we need to go in the opposite direction. There's plenty of that with the Satanists trying to say like, oh, you want to have religion in town. In the town square, well, we're gonna have that. We need to go slutty straight men. We need to like make it a thing, so that they're like, oh, you know what? It's not a big deal if we see a little bit of arm.
I don't know about you, but I am rocking the butt cleavage more often than not. But I mean, even the other night we had a friend over for dinner. One of my wife's friends came over for dinner. I made paella. It was delightful. But we were sitting on the couch afterwards. My wife kept signaling to me to pull my shirt down because it was riding up over my gut, and she didn't want her friend to see my gut.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, it goes both ways.
Can I just say, because I don't call it a gut enough, but so you've heard the term fupa before?
I have not. I don't speak any language but English.
Okay. So when I was in college, when I was in high school, fupa was this big term, and it's fatty upper pussy area or fatty upper penis area. I'm not sexist. You can have either.
Fatty upper privates area
or fatty upper privates area. When I
went down with FUPA, yeah, you know me.
When I went to college, somebody said something about their fupa, and this girl goes, "I hate that term. I like to call it my gunt." To this day, I hear gut and I just think gunt, and it makes me smile.
Good.
So, yeah. I feel like there's a good amount of shit on this episode we could get canceled for, and that was kind of my hope. Was we would lead by example.
So, what else do you want to say about cancel culture? The culture of cancel. I think that the thing that gets me is that there's a lot of nuance that we have been exploring. And there are some people who don't explore any nuance, and they just jump to one thing or the other. And it's either the person I like is never guilty, or anyone who they ever met is guilty because they're guilty. There's so many extremes,
and that's an important thing to do across the board. And I know that like a lot of our liberal side of things hates the both sides argument, and it's because it's a false dichotomy, not because it's not both sides. It's because it's not even.
There's not just two sides too. So
true, that's true too. But I think that like, and I noticed this. I will say, I noticed this at the beginning of the Trump presidency. How much our side, and I'm pretty good about this. I think from what I've talked to you about it, you're pretty good. But there's a lot of people who absolutely cannot handle nuance, and I think it hurts us. It hurts our point when we can't do that. And I'll give you the example of, so Trump took office in January 20th, 2017.
Correct.
Okay. January 21st or 22nd, 2017 was Holocaust Remembrance Day.
It's in the 20s, yeah.
I was gonna say,
I'm with you. It just passed.
I'm like 90% sure it was not a weekend. It was like 1 to 2 days into his presidency. And when they released their statement, they didn't say the word Jewish. And a friend of mine on Facebook was absolutely apeshit because it was Jewish erasure, and I was like, "Do you think that's more plausible than his people are incompetent. And now in 2023, I would say there's a lot of anti-Semitism there, and I wouldn't even defended anti-Semitism then, but I was like, there's a good chance. Like, we can't be picking. There's plenty of fights to pick here. Let's not be picking those fights. And I used to see it all the time, and that was the first example. And I was like, you're making me defend Trump. Please don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, you got to look at trends, not a one-off thing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I don't. Trump did a good thing. What was the one good thing Trump did?
Left office.
No, he didn't really ever do that. I don't know if I'd say he really did that. No, he did the crime thing. You know, he got together about prison reform or criminal
with
justice
Kim
reform.
Kardashian.
Yeah, he did. And I don't know how much it's helped. It may be only performative. I don't know, but that was. We can say that was the one issue that he moved the right direction on. Whether or not anything real happened, I don't know. It takes years for things to show up, but that was one thing he did well. George W. Bush did a lot of work to get HIV medicines to Africa, you know, for free.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah, that's one thing that he did well. He went to Africa and he saw the state of it, and he was horrified by the state of health in Africa, and he did work towards getting neither one of them may have done anything else right in their entire lives. Yeah. Though I guess George W. will also give him credit for having a friendship with Bill Clinton, not as good a friendship as his father had with Bill Clinton, but a friendship where they appear together to show that the two sides can get along. You don't have to be adversarial. You can find friendship, so that's a good thing too. But like,
and he seems to have a really good friendship with Michelle Obama too.
Yeah, he gives her candy.
It's weirdly adorable.
Yeah. But I mean, I hate everything else that either one of them ever did, but I can acknowledge they did one or two things right, three things maybe.
Yeah, and it's important. It's really important because during the Obama presidency, and I'm not a huge Obama apologist. I think
he was a decent centrist.
I was going to say he was probably the best president of my life, but that doesn't mean much. I didn't live through Jimmy Carter, so like you know what I mean. Like there isn't a whole lot of competition, but I also remember seeing stuff where I was like, if Obama says he likes cheese pizza, they're going to boycott cheese pizza. Like, they literally couldn't acknowledge anything. Right. And I don't want our side to be to do the same in the opposite direction. We need to say, yeah, you're right on that, but, or you're right on that and not say,
no, broken clock can be right twice a day.
Right.
So the one challenge I think that the left has with nuance, where nuance works against us, and as a skeptic, it works against skeptics. As a scientifically minded person, it works against us. Is if we try to be honest and have nuance, that doesn't work well in a war of words against the side that doesn't. Agreed. Right. Agreed. When you're just like, well, it takes time, and you have to understand that there's this and there's that, and they're like, it's bad. Then it's hard to have a rational. It's easier to lock on to the bumper sticker.
That's absolutely true. That's true. But I do find that I've actually been able to break down some conversations by acknowledging that one-on-one, exactly. One-on-one, not on group settings, but one-on-one.
And I think the left is trying to learn from the right in that way, but we do it badly. Like, defund the police, which I think everything in the policies that are described under defund the police, I think are wonderful policies. But that phrase is such an adversarial phrase, which not that adversarial is necessarily bad, but it's hard to have the conversation because they come back to the buzzword, which is not what they meant.
Right. We've gotten off subject, which I'm fine with. I think we did a good amount of talking about the subject, but I did have something I wanted to tell you that I thought would be good for the podcast. And I also, in case my boss is listening, she can hear me acknowledge that I was wrong about something, or at least not good at something. So I was in Vegas last week. I had some back issues, and my boss told me to go see a chiropractor, and I am aware that you're on the same page as me, that you actually probably have a good reason and I don't. I was a bad skeptic, and I said, I'm not going to go see a chiropractor because that's a bunch of I didn't say shit. I said that's a bunch of con artistry or something. And she was like, what? And I literally realized that I had zero information that I actually could pull. I said, people die doing it.
It's true. People have had strokes.
Right. But I couldn't.
But that's not the best argument, because that can happen in doctor's office too.
My argument was bad because I have not looked into it for myself. I had not done any research. I had seen a couple things about babies dying, which honestly I think she would not have argued to do it to a baby. Like, she's just talking about for herself. But like, I realized like in the argument, and I googled a couple things, and she was like, "Why don't you like already know this if you're gonna be shooting off at the mouth?" And I was just like, "Yeah, no, you're 100% right. That I was being a bad skeptic."
And I'd say if your back hurts, certainly chiropractors can help you with pain like that. But so can a physical therapist who does manipulation and massage. So, you know, who's probably better trained than a chiropractor. The challenge with the chiropractor is I had this argument with my dad once because he's like, I went to a chiropractor for years. And I'm like, yeah, for your neck pain. And they do a good job for that, no doubt. But they're kind of, to use the words my hip children would use, they're kind of sus. So we pulled up every chiropractor website in the area, in the town in which you live, because that's the town that he lives in. And every website listed back problems, readjustments, like yes. Then cold and flu, allergies. It's like almost like literally everyone we pulled up, and we only pulled up 3 or 4 before he conceded the point. Had things that there's no way that a chiropractor treats. It's insane. Like a chiropractor doesn't get rid of a virus in your system. It just doesn't do it. I don't care. And that's the challenge of finding a chiropractor who is, when some of them are con artists and some of them do a good job, that's the hard thing. It's harder to trust than a doctor. You can assume most doctors are competent at their job on average, where chiropractic is still a harder assumption. And again, chiropractic, I think it's fine for a backache, though I would rather go to a physical therapist who can long-term help me than my friends who've gone to a chiropractor for 20 years. I'm like, you know what? They're not fixing your problem. They're alleviating your pain. And maybe they do fix problems sometimes. I'm not saying they don't. I haven't looked into that fully. I just know that they also often claim things they cannot substantiate.
I just thought it was funny that I was being a bad skeptic and didn't know off the top of my head, and or I just like, no, I'm pretty sure that's bad, and I said that, and then this morning on my way to work, I was listening to a 2-week-old episode of one of the podcasts we listened to that I won't mention because we've already mentioned it. And they were talking about how exactly what you just said, with chiropractors claiming that your fingernails are too long. They're not long enough. You can fix it all with chiropractor. You know.
Eddie Izzard, the comedian, she has routines about I crack your back, I crack your spine. And it's like, let me hit you with the frying pan and put your broom here and like crack, and you hear the crack. So here's a final cancel thought from me to go way old school. Okay. I'm talking before I was born. So in the 50s, in the McCarthy era of blackballing people, where a lot of people were accused of being communists, and some of them were members of the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, as a political thing, because First Amendment, you can be, but they were blackballed from performing, from being in part of Hollywood. When that went away, there's a story where Zero Mostel was, I think, directing something, maybe producing it, and casting, and somebody who was on the far right was auditioning, and he was casting him in it, and he said, I'm shocked that you cast me because I was one of the people who tried to blackball you. And, and Zero Mostel's response, I'm not getting the details right, but the gist is right, was, yeah, but I'm on the left. We don't blackball.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think he would be sad to see what cancel culture has become, because we blackball now. Yeah,
that's true. Especially when it comes to blackface, which I'm. This is the topic that's going to ruin. This is the thing that's going to ruin it.
I'm leaving the office right now.
What'd you say?
I'm leaving the podcast. I quit the podcast.
Your first episode as co-host, and I'm bringing you down with me. No, one of the cancel things. So like, I don't have much of a problem with what happened with all of the racist shit that happened a few years ago with like governors and Trudeau and everybody else catching shit for having dressed in blackface. I have a problem with a little bit of the way that it was done, because we were using blackface as this catch-all that blackface had a very specific meaning, and dressing up like Michael Jackson because you think Michael Jackson is cool and painting your face black was not blackface based on what blackface was.
It's not a minstrel show.
It was not a minstrel show. It was You were not, and I can agree that you should not do that. I would not do that. And I can say, like, let's not do that going forward. I would even say like some of those situations absolutely were fucked up, and they should have some consequence. But there was also like a lot where it was kind of more genuine stupidity, not ignorance. So Juliana Hough dressed up as Crazy Eyes from. Did you ever watch Orange is the New Black?
I did not. I'm familiar with it. I know it existed in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah, she dressed up as Crazy Eyes, and Crazy Eyes was this amazing character, and she loved the character, and she dressed up as her and painted her skin brown. And it was 2012 or 13 or 14. It was far enough in that she absolutely fucking should have known better. But at the same time, that's not the same as putting shoe shine on your face and like making fun of black as a race.
Yeah.
And I think that I have no problem with us agreeing, like I said, like agreeing that we don't do that. We don't do that anymore. We shouldn't have done it in the first place. And I'm talking about even the like dressing up as a homage to, as opposed to a parody of. But like we used that term as a catch-all in a way that it shouldn't have been, and this is almost certainly going to get cut out of the podcast because I don't think I'm arguing it correctly. I'm way too white, and you're way too white for me to be having this argument.
I'm not white. I'm Jewish.
Yeah,
and I say that because
are you Jewish or are you Jewish?
Yeah, I'm kind of Jewish, right? Because I'm not a practicing Jew. I'm not an adherent of Judaism anymore. Yeah. I'm an Ashkenazi. But when the Klan comes or the Nazis come, I'm not white when they show up at my door.
To be fair,
and that's how I judge it. Yeah. When the white people show up, I'm not one of them.
I don't know that the Klan or the Nazis would like me either, but I think that Logan probably wins me some points. But
but I think a key thing. I agree 100% with the fact that after the time that the culture started saying, hey, it's anything you do in that realm of darkening your skin reminds some people of minstrel shows and blackface, and that's why you shouldn't do it, because it brings back horrible traumatic history and thought, and that's why you shouldn't do it.
Right.
Not that you intended to do that, but it is the consequences of your action.
Right.
But I also see there's a difference where what did you intend? If your costume was, I'm a person of this nationality, that's my costume.
Yeah.
That was a racist thing to do, regardless of
what,
what.
And that's,
if it was, I'm dressing as Michael Jackson, then it was not intended as racist. It was intended as dressing as an individual as your costume. And if I dressed as an alien from a science fiction show, I can wear whatever color flesh that alien has. If I'm being Data, I can be gold.
Yeah.
And I think in the current world, you shouldn't do it. I don't like when we go back 20 or 30, longer than that. Like the people here's a governor when he was in high school, he dressed like Michael Jackson. Let's
agreed.
Go after him for that. It's like, he would know better today, but then that you'll find hundreds of people who dress like that because people didn't get upset at it at the time. Should they have? Maybe, but they didn't, or like it wasn't expressed in the culture. Right. So
and it comes down to intention and cultural understanding. And the cultural understanding was, we'll say vague to be generous, but you articulated it so much better and probably bailed me out right there. But that is what I meant, exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
But
and I don't think intention matters anymore because, like you said, now you should know.
Now there's cultural awareness.
The flip side that, the other side of not the blackface argument, but the similar argument of cultural appropriation kind of things is my wife left a parenting group, a mom group, because I don't remember who the celebrity was, but some celebrity wore a sari or a punjab to a white celebrity to some event. And
there's a good chance it was Juliana Hough because she dressed up as the black girl from that show, dressed up as an Indian at one point, and I think she dressed up in like a Native American Indian, and then dressed up as an Indian. Yeah, I think she like that. That's where she defending her gets a little murky, but like she's a good example.
Yeah, but it was like maybe a red carpet thing or something like that. It wasn't like a Halloween costume. It was, this is the clothes I'm wearing. Yeah. And women in the group were going bananas on her for cultural appropriation. And my wife, who was born in Ahmedabad, India, was like, she looks gorgeous in that outfit. Yeah. And they're like, you don't understand. And like, it was such a white-splaining moment to my Indian wife saying that she should be offended because it's appropriating her culture. And my wife's like, first of all, there are more Indian women than there are American women. We're not a subjugated minority that, in the world. There's like a billion Indians. It's not like dressing like a Native American whose culture is being destroyed by the white person.
Right.
They're fine.
Right.
She goes, it's clothes. At our wedding, she and her sister spent hours picking out outfits for my mom to choose from. What my mom could wear Indian clothes to my wedding.
Right.
Like, white women don't have to tell an Indian woman they should be offended if someone wears Indian clothes. Agreed. Because it's clothes and it's current clothes. It's not a costume. It's not like I'm dressing in your folk cultural costume from the 40s.
Yeah.
It's what you buy in a current Indian store today, and you're allowed to buy it.
Yeah.
You won't get treated as well as my wife because she's Brahmin, so she gets treated really well. But you can go in the store.
Yeah. So I have
that was a little joke about caste system, but it's true.
Gotcha. So I have a friend. She's a really nice, kind person. That I need to preface this with that. And so this story is when Sarah and I first started dating, so we're talking like 12 years ago. She and I, so she's white, this friend, not Sarah. Sarah's also white. But this friend is white, and one of my friends that I've had on the podcast before, Brian, he's black. And he and I and this friend who I will not name her, we were at a party, and we were talking, and I want to say it was Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas, and I said something.
You were talking to Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas at a party?
No, we were talking about Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas, and
it's a horrible colonialism image from Roald Dahl that we don't usually recognize as that.
And we were talking about that, and she said to me and Brian, who's black, she looked at us both straight faced and said, I took a cultural sensitivity class in college, so I'm really in tune with this. And then she white-splained to him. And this was I had not heard of mansplaining or white-splaining. And Sarah was there. I don't know how peripheral she was. She heard it all. And to this day, Sarah and I jokingly would be like, you don't understand. Like, I took a class on being black. and like I said, she's sweet. And my friend Brian is friends with her and loves her. And like, I don't think he probably was like, this is so stupid. But he was not offended or upset with her. He just was, acknowledging the ridiculousness of the situation.
My flip side, I was at a party and my friend Kelly brought a couple of her girlfriends to the party, and the 3 black women. And I walked over to them, and they were talking about Kelly's hair, and Kelly had her hair curled, and her hair looked great. And she's like, and what I love about it is it's so soft. And I was walking over, and she goes, Matthew, come here. Feel my hair. Feel how soft my hair is. And I stopped and said, oh, no. You are not going to trick me, a white man, into touching a black woman's hair. No, no, no. and her friends didn't know me, so they looked like askance at me. And Kelly started cracking up, and she's like, my white friends are so woke, they won't even touch my hair when I tell them to. And then her friends laughed, and they go, okay, we're joking around together.
A couple topics that I do want to get to with you, and so listeners, if you're,
I love that you say listeners plural.
Listener, Josh, you know who you are. No, I don't know that. One of my friends from work listened to a lot, but now that we've been gone 6 weeks, it could literally be like, my future Mike, when you're editing this episode. But when if anybody has any opinion on these couple of topic suggestions, let me know, because so one topic that I really want to talk about, and I'm not sure how we're going to tackle it yet, but I think it would be interesting is I have aphantasia. I would love to talk about that. Do you know what that is?
That is the inability to picture things in your mind vividly.
Yes,
or
it is.
Depending on how serious it is, but at all to vividly.
That's a topic that I think we'll have a lot of fun with. Because
I feel like I'm visual explaining to you now, because it's your issue, not mine.
Sarah and I have found so many interesting things about me since we learned that that's what's going on in my head. I don't remember what the other topics were. I think that's next week's episode, if you're cool with it, because I think that's a funner topic. Like, it's a fun topic that we can, like, we don't have to have every episode doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in that, so I'll just be making fun of you most of the time.
Yeah, well, and we can run things. So that's what I do with Sarah now. Sarah and I will run it because I read slow as shit. You used to make fun of me.
They'd make fun of you when we first got friendly.
And when I learned that I had this, Sarah's immediate first response was like, "How do you enjoy reading?" So, like it's been this like trail of discovery.
I have things I want to say, but I'll save it for the episode. Why waste it now?
Save it for the episode. So we will have this episode's going out Friday morning, and that's going to be I think this will be our recording schedule if you're cool with it, and Friday mornings will be our release schedule. That gives me a couple days to edit.
We may have to do a couple of double records unless you want to skip weeks, because we both travel for business, so we'll have to try to account for that.
I think that will be doable.
So I'll be going to France I leave on a couple of weeks on President's Day. Was that the 20th, I think? Monday the 20th, I go to France,
Okay, well, we'll try to record 2 next week then.
Yeah.
Cool. Here, why don't we...
Because, I do that. I go to Paris. You went to Vegas. I go to Paris. I know how it is.
Yeah, there was a Paris in Vegas, so I win.
Yeah. Okay.
Or I lose, depending.
Last month I was in the French Alps for a week.
Oh,
it was very nice. Ate a lot of cheese. Oh, God, I ate a lot of cheese.
Yeah.
A lot of wine, a lot of cheese.
Yeah.
And almost died hiking up the side of a mountain. They told us 15 minutes from where you parked. We'll give you the ski pole and, a light on your head because we're going up the side of the hill. There's nothing there for lights. I'm going, it's a 15-minute hike up to the ski lodge. And that's what they tell you, so you'll do it. It was like a 45-minute hike for the people who did it first. For me, it was like an hour, 20 minutes. There's been a pandemic. I haven't left my house in 3 years, except the grocery shop. My legs were like lead. I was dying going up that hill.
Yeah.
Drank a lot of champagne with Kier in it for the sugar content to revitalize.
Nice. All right, so let's wrap it up. We need I'm going to try to work on an intro for us. I'm going to try to work on an outro for us, and I think that we should just be like, because these episodes are going to drop on Fridays, so I'm going to be like, it's February.
That's something for you to think about over the weekend.
No, I was going to say it's February 13th. It's Friday. It's
it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
In this case.
Oh, I'm looking at January. I was like, why?
Like, why? You're a month behind.
Yeah. But I was just gonna say we should rip off one specific thing from each of our podcasts that we listen to and just make them amount.
It's
be like,
Friday.
We are the podcastiverse. I really want to know the podcastiverse.
I was like, I love that. Skeptocrat ends with catchphrase sign off, because like in the beginning they must just had it as a placeholder, and then they thought it would be funny never to take it away. It's just the placeholder forever.
That and Jumanji.
Sometimes it's Jumanji.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, we will talk to you guys next week about aphantasia.
I can just picture it now.
I cannot.